Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen. Welcome back to Mystifying Miracles. Excited to have you back. And today's story is another good one. I apologize for my voice. It's a little raspy and hoarse from being sick the previous week. But we'll do this together and hopefully it doesn't sound too awful. Our story begins in July of 1996. And the person in the story, his name is Steve Smith. He worked as an athletic director and basketball coach for Oak Hill Academy Baptist, and it was a prep school. His job with this prep school was very tedious, very busy during the school year, a lot of things going on with coaching and teaching. The basketball team he coached were very competitive. In fact, over the years, many of the boys that graduated and moved on after that prep school went into the NBA. He was a very good coach and he loved his job. He, did the best that he could all year long. So when summers came, that was Steve's time off. He wanted to just kick back, relax, do the things he loved. And he really loved playing golf with his buddies in the summertime. So it was just his time to kind of kick back. As most of you teachers know out there, your summer times, that's very important to you guys. Well, on this particular day in July of 1996, of course, it was very hot, and he had taken a weekend to go play golf with his buddies across the state line. So he lived just over the border into Virginia, but this day was in North Carolina, and it was a good trip. It was away for the weekend, playing golf with his buddies, and just, having a good relaxing time. On this day, it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even a little bit over that. He was driving home in his 94 silver Jeep Cherokee, and he was it's a scenic route that, he had to take back, and it was through the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it was beautiful. A lot of tourists stopped there and drive through there just to see the beautiful scenery. And that morning, before he started his way back, he had played 18 rounds of golf in that heat with his pals. So, and not only that, the day previously, they also played 18 holes. So there was 2 full days, in that summer heat that can really just wear you down, wear anybody out. So he had a good time, but he was looking forward to just getting back and just chilling out after having been in the heat all weekend. Steve was like kind of winding through the mountains on Highway 21, just enjoying the drive, but he was very tired after the long weekend, and he knew this. As he started his car up and headed back home, he even contemplated pulling over to the side to take a nap. He was that exhausted. But, he knew it was hot. Who wants to pull over on the side of the road in the heat? Which, of course, he should have, obviously. But, the thing that kept him going anyway, instead of doing that, was the thought of his cool, cold air condition in his house. He'd much rather lay and relax and rest in that environment as opposed to a hot car on the side of the road. So he just decided to push forward and thought, I can do this. I'm tired, but I've done it plenty of times before this drive. I'm going to head home, rest when I get there. Around 3 p.m., he was going up like this steep incline, and it said it was south of the Roaring Gap. It's kind of hard, Roaring Gap. I've heard of that place, never seen it, but I heard it's beautiful. The hill summit, it was a sight to behold. Again, as I stated earlier, many tourists stopped at this point to get out, explore, and just enjoy the view. So he's going up over the incline, and then he starts to descend on the other side. And as he's descending the summit, going back towards home, Steve falls asleep at the wheel. And yes, you guys can see where this is going. So he falls asleep at the wheel. The part where he fell asleep was where the road also started to curve. Not just any curve, a very sharp curve. When he fell asleep, obviously lost control. The Jeep crossed over oncoming lanes and went up a steep embankment. From there, his Jeep started to roll sideways, and then it went back down. As it rolled back down, it landed upside down. Where it landed was actually back in the middle of the road. And it all happened so fast. Steve reports, he remembers just hearing, waking up out of, that nap as he's rolling, and you hear glass shattering, metal of the car crunching. So yeah, he just heard all these sounds as he's rolling. And then when he comes to a complete stop, he's like, oh my goodness. So he wants to get out of the vehicle, which is upside down. But as he's trying to open the door, he's not realizing, because during the rolling, he hit his head. So he's kind of out of it. And he didn't realize the roof, part of it was caved in. So he couldn't open the door. He was trapped upside down. No sooner is he's trying to jar open the door and do everything he can to get out, he hears a woman's voice. It's coming from behind him. So he turns around and he's like, what in the world? And he sees a woman on all fours, on her hands and knees from the back of the car, looking in through the crunched glass at him. And Steve says it was a woman with dark shoulder length hair. She looked about 40 years old, and she had proceeded to tell him, look, the only way out is back here. You're going to have to crawl this way and come out the back window. Steve unbuckles his belt and he proceeds to try to get up and crawl his way and inch his way towards the back of the vehicle. And as he's doing this, he's also, remember, he hit his head, so he's not thinking all the way clearly. And he wants to grab his golf clubs. I'm not a golfer, but I know those are expensive. And I would assume that was going through his mind, like, those are my good golf clubs. I'm going to grab them on the way out. So that's what he was going to do as he's crawling. As he's almost to the clubs, he's going to grab them. The woman speaks out and says, leave the clubs. Don't worry about them. You don't have time. And at that moment, Steve noticed, and she had told him as well, that the car was starting to catch on fire. And right at that moment, Steve started to smell the smoke. So he's like, oh man, all right, I'll leave the clubs. So he forgets that, and he continues to crawl his way out of the back window. Once Steve gets out the back, he finally gets up, crawls up slowly to a standing position, and he turns around. He wants to thank the lady for helping him. But he turns around and there's no one there. He's like, huh? So he starts looking all around, left, right, behind him, calling out to the lady. He wants to thank her and see where she is, but she is nowhere to be found. And he was just like, what? She was just right here. And also the place where this happened too, throughout those mountains, this part was like a big long stretch of countryside. So Steve said that there is no way, she could hide real quick or get away, where she can't be seen, so to speak. He quoted, if you could see the countryside along this stretch, you'd know what I mean when I say there is no way she just walked off into the woods. It's too remote, end quote. No sooner, he's kind of looking around searching for her. He remembers, he's like, oh yeah, the car, it's catching fire. I better move away from the vehicle. So he does. He moves away. No sooner that he starts walking away to get away from the vehicle, a big explosion. The car catches fire and turns into this big blast. And in that moment, he's kind of look at his poor Jeep in flames, and he thinks to himself, what would I have done if that lady wouldn't have showed up? He'd still be trapped in the car trying to get the door open, not realizing that he'd have to crawl to the back. He wouldn't have had time on his own to figure all that out. So he knows that was just a blessing. Soon, after the blast, cars started finally coming, because this, again, was a remote area. And as the cars came, people got out to check on Steve, make sure all was well. He asked them about the lady. Hey, you didn't, on your way up this way, you didn't see a lady walking or anything, did you? And he asks all of them, all the cars that stopped, and not a one had seen any woman on the side of the road or walking away from the wreckage or anything like that. You got to think, okay, was this an angel? I mean, what other explanation could there be? It's very intriguing. I'd like to know what you guys think or your opinion on the matter. After, Steve had gotten back and, he checked in with the doctor, he had gone into the ER. The EMTs had come on the scene and everything. Well, after the fact, here comes another miracle, not just the woman or possible angel, but the injuries that he had gotten from the accident itself. It was discovered that Steve had suffered 2 fractured vertebrae, the C3 and the C4. And it had happened on opposite sides of the spine. Typically, that's a very horrific injury. And his x-rays, they showed that he had a broken neck. His doctor actually was amazed that Steve was not paralyzed or killed. And you kind of think back to how he got out of the car, he's getting out on his own, moving. And you know how they say, when you have a head injury of any sort or a wreck, they, stabilize the spine and the head. Because if you have a broken neck, you could do more damage by moving around. And he did. He crawled out of the wreckage, stood up, all that stuff. And he wasn't paralyzed, no lasting injuries that were horrific or anything like that. So that's kind of like another miracle in this story. It was said that, Steve only spent 10 weeks in a neck brace. And after that, he was fine. It said he had like a little residual numbness. I think it was in his left arm. Other than that, he was fine. And, it's after the 10 weeks in the neck brace was able to, I guess, stabilize and heal to where he was good. He was convinced wholeheartedly that the woman was an angel and that, God protected him that day. I think so too. I think that's, very interesting. I would love, not to be in an accident, of course, but I would love to have an experience with someone that I thought was an angel someday. I just find that, fascinating. Ever since I was a kid, I like reading those books about angels, people that experienced angels as children or adults. I used to read that like at the age of 10. It just fascinated me. I guess that's why miracles fascinate me to this day. And anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. And until the next one, I love you guys. I thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.